Will you pray with me? Oh, gracious and loving God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be most pleasing to you. So, we've come to an end of another Epiphany season. We're perched right on the edge of Lent, waiting for Jesus to move towards Jerusalem and Calvary. And we pause for a mountaintop experience. And I wonder what it is about these mountaintop experiences that we long for. That brief interaction when God seems all that much closer to us. Now, Peter, James, and John got much more than a brief taste. They had one of those intense, elevated visions that might have transformed their lives then and there. But I think, like most of us, we're never ever quite sure to do with it. And so we have Peter saying, Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwelling places. And I'm sure he was trying to be helpful. He's like some of us that feel like it's a situation and we should do something. But however well-intentioned Peter's motive was, we hear God show up in this story saying, this is my son, my chosen. Listen to him. And if you listen closely, I can almost hear God's little bit of annoyance with Peter, who didn't have enough sense just to stay quiet in this amazing moment. But Peter, like many of us, was trying to process what was happened, was trying to figure out and absorb all that had happened. He was trying to make out what it meant to him, and was missing the point that this story is about Jesus, who Jesus is. And these disciples were invited to an incredibly intimate moment when God speaks about God's own beloved child. Theologian Alan Culpepper has written that Peter's attempt to preserve the mountaintop experience wasn't what Jesus had in mind. Culpepper writes, faithfulness is not achieved by freezing a moment, but by following on in confidence that God is leading, and what lies ahead is even greater than what we've already experienced. And I've been wondering about this passage because I think we all had a mountaintop experience about 6 weeks ago in the middle of the street. I think that we were privileged to stand on top of a mountain. And it was amazing. And for many of us, it felt like God was right there as this new church was being born. But the question then becomes, what do we do with that experience? Are we like Peter? Do we somehow build a structure around that moment, that mountaintop experience? Or do we somehow understand that that is just the beginning and have faith to follow God and know that what comes after is even greater than that mountaintop experience. You know, I can imagine what the disciples felt. All of a sudden, you're on a mountain and you see Jesus change right before your eyes, and you see two dead guys, really dead guys, show up and have a conversation. This transformation that occurred there on the mountaintop was indescribable. They go on and say they don't tell anybody what happened. But that transformation, that thing that happened on the mountain, I think happened for a reason. I think that happened to remind us that we are all invited in to experience God at different points in time, and that we have a response to that transformation. And I will suggest that that response is that we ourselves are transformed and are somehow different. Now, transformation is one of those things that a lot of people like to talk about, and sometimes we get a little confused because does it happen in a mountaintop experience and zip zap overnight everything's transformed? It didn't happen that way for our disciples, I'm pretty sure. And I'm not sure it happens for us either. One of my favorite books is called The Very Hungry Caterpillar. It's a children's book by Eric Carle. And it's a wonderful book about transformation. It begins, "In the light of a moon, a little egg lay on a leaf." Now, if you know the story, the egg becomes a caterpillar, and it's a very ferociously hungry caterpillar who begins by eating his way through one apple, and then as you turn the pages, you get 2 pears and 3 plums and a cherry pie and sausage until he becomes really fat and has a stomachache. Now, I would tell you, I don't know about the really fat part, but the stomachache part has a lot to do about transformation. Because our little hungry caterpillar, of course, is transformed into a butterfly. But it didn't happen overnight. As we sit on the edge of Lent, I would suggest that this is a great time for us to talk about living in our mountaintop experience, but also reacting to it, and that reaction maybe being transformation. If indeed we were so privileged to be in that mountaintop experience, what should our response be? Where should transformation occur? Since it's been about 6 weeks, I do think, and we keep talking and we all kind of have that still kind of warm glow about the mountaintop experience, but I'll be honest with you, it's kind of wearing off a little bit. And I would suggest that that means it's time for us to do some transformation work. So I'm going to suggest that in this Lenten season that we pay attention to the words that came right after Peter's great faux pas. This is my son, my chosen one. Listen to him. I think the correct response to a transformation mountaintop experience is, indeed, to listen to Jesus. We have a lot of potential for this new congregation. We have a lot of potential for new and different things, as well as things that we've been doing in the past. And the best way, I think, to go forward is to listen to Jesus. Now, some of you may say, yeah. Lent's a wonderful time, though, to listen to Jesus. So I'm going to suggest a couple of things. One, Ash Wednesday is Wednesday. I invite you to come and join us in a service and think about transformation, personally and for our congregation. And to do intentional time of reflection during Lent. I'm not big on giving up things for Lent, and I'll be honest, it's mainly because it just frustrates the heck out of me. But I am really clear about adding in things during Lent. Less frustrating. So I'd like to suggest that corporately, instead of eating through an apple and pears and plums, that we as a congregation think about adding some time this season to do a couple things. One is to pray on a regular basis daily, maybe more than daily. My grandma had a saying that said, a day hymned in prayer was less likely to unravel. I would like to invite us into a practice of intentional prayer as our apple. And I'd also like to invite us into a time of Bible study. How else do we listen for Jesus except in prayer and in study? And the third thing is corporately. We as a church, as a congregation, believe that the best way to hear Jesus is in community with each other, to check out what we hear God calling this congregation to do in a corporate manner. So I invite you to spend some time this season eating your way through prayer and Bible study and corporate discussion. And if you get a stomach ache, that's okay, because it probably means you're on the right path. It's not an easy thing, and it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen in a day or a week. It happens moment by moment. So, my friends, I invite you to think about God's advice to us. Listen. Listen to Jesus, because through that, I think we will hear our still speaking God speak to us. Amen.